Hello, and welcome to the Comeback Talking Stick Show. So I'm here with the crew, the team. So I'd firstly like to welcome our special guest. We have the incredible David Ellis. Hello.
Hey everyone, we're gonna have a really fun show today.
Welcome to the show, brother. And I'd like to welcome the team. So we have the Maty Waller. Hello, brother.
Hello, everybody.
And we have Laura Two Feathers Massey.
Hi guys, hi everyone.
And we have the Grandmaster of the Obvious who's just slidden into the show like a guy through the night, Andrew Bartzis. Hello, brother.
Hello, everybody. How is it going today?
It is going well, brother, and welcome to the show. So, what are we going to talk about today? We've done a lot. For me, it's been absolutely crazy. It's that mode I'm in processing from Scotland and doing the combined therapies. We were like, in the group chat we're like, what are we going to call the show today? We're just going to call it the Comeback Show. We're going to see what we can go into, get some subject matters going. David had a few ideas, didn't you, David?
Oh yes, I have lots of questions for you guys.
And some of those questions fire away. Let's let it rip.
Yeah, so I thought that we've been doing shows off and on. You've been doing shows on your side, we've been doing shows on UCM, but nobody ever addresses the myths and the stupid ideas around spirituality. So I figured that I would throw these myths at you by becoming John Doe. John Doe has never done spirituality before. He's just going to throw questions at you all. Does that make sense? Let me channel my inner
So
John.
is John Doe related to John D? Because if so, my light worker probably not like that.
Listen, we're going to ask you questions. Number one, is veganism the highest form of spirituality that there is? Go.
Absolutely.
No.
Yeah.
Not whatsoever.
if you're a zealot light worker, it is.
It's guaranteed enlightenment.
Guaranteed enlightenment?
It all depends on how responsible you are about being a vegan, what type of person you are anyway as a vegan.
So tell me,
guaranteed anema.
Yeah, guaranteed to fuck you up.
Yes. So my question is like, what have your experiences been with veganism and vegetarianism?
Oh boy. On my show, I have saved a number of bad vegans from dying, literally. Okay, because they had not had any protein for years and years in a row. And when you compare it to Dachau death camp labor, the Dachau death camp labor were getting more protein than them because they were bad vegans. So the message began: if you're going to be a vegan, be a good vegan. There's 1.5 billion Indians that have figured out how to do it. And you can't if you're ordering stuff off your phone all the time and thinking salads are actually going to feed you and give you true nutrients.
Or just fill up on carbs, bread, potatoes, things like that, pasta. That's what I did because when I tried to be vegetarian and vegan, I wasn't educated on health really at all. So I just thought by not eating meat, I was going to get these benefits, and it was to the contrary because my diet became absolutely horrific for me.
Why do we talk about the broccoli myth when someone says, like, I've seen people post it all the fucking time on Facebook.
Yeah.
They'll post like a hunk of beef, like 24 grams of protein, then next to a broccoli which has 44 grams. Let's talk about that.
the difference is
what the hell, man?
Yes.
It's the complete proteins and the incomplete proteins. So yes, one might have they may have similar protein content, but one has complete protein content with all the amino acids. The other one has to be stored in the liver until some other part that combines the proteins is then actually be able to be usable. So yes, it may be same protein gram for gram or similar, but it's not the same kind of protein.
I was telling you guys before the show. That a lot of vegans hate my guts because I'm not a vegan by choice, first of all, right? And number two, I couldn't care less about wearing leather shoes or any of that weird stuff, okay? You have a bunch of vegans that are this big and dropping, okay? They come to you with the sunken eyes and everything else in between, right? And they're like, hi. Your leather shoes is offensive. Do you think that's all wrapped up into this idea that somehow or the other you escape karma by not eating meat. Is that what that's about?
Yeah, it was for me. That's what drove me into it, because I felt that way.
So one of my family members, I won't name the name, she went down a road of, there's something to do with Sikhism or something off Sikhism, and they believe that everything has a karma. So if you eat meat, you get the karma of the meat, but you can drink milk and you can eat obviously vegetables and stuff. So I've seen it firsthand, and that person is very undernourished and has a lot of health problems, and she's still doing that diet, where she's believing that when she eats meat, it's going to cause really nasty karma for her. But she can have milk, cows are fine, vegetables are fine, and so on. So I've seen it firsthand how it can destroy someone.
Let me ask a question.
I've had those belief systems.
You're literally stealing milk from a cow that's supposed to feed a calf, but you're worried about the karma from the cow. That makes absolutely no sense. This is the kind of discussion I want to have with you guys. Like, some stuff does not make sense.
Okay, so David, what this ties to, right, especially what we were just discussing, is the misconception that the East is more wise than the West, and the East holds all of the spiritual wisdom, like India, places like that. When the truth is, it's not that. It's not the case.
All the Baba Rum-Dums know how to eat and do everything else.
Exactly.
That is actually a myth in and of itself, right? Right. I used to practice yoga for many, many years. I've met some really dumb yogis. Dumb. Okay, right? Really, really dumb. And I say dumb in the true sense of the word, because if you look at the yoga world today, right, just because you're walking around with a Lululemon mat doesn't mean that you are a friggin' yogi of any kind. And a lot of people accessorize the whole yoga industry. The yoga industry has become very, very, very shallow. And you guys know that, right?
Oh, yes.
Wrapped up into this idea of yoga, this and yoga that, is this idea of veganism and vegetarianism. And I'm like, you'll have a lot of stuff to think about, as opposed to whether or not you're going to eat meat or not. You're going to incur karma no matter what you do, right? Because if I give that tree a voice and you plucked that leaf off that tree and you ate it and then you heard the tree saying, ow!
How about you're giving negative karma by not eating that meat, by not honoring that meat?
Yeah.
Okay?
And instead of releasing trauma, you're creating more trauma within your system through what you suppose is your health system. When you should really actually do practicing trauma release.
And there's the misconception that it's bad for the planet to eat meat.
Why?
Cowspiracy, was it called?
Yeah.
Cow farts.
Yeah, the cow. Yes, exactly. Environmentalists, we eat too much meat.
Can you imagine if, and I'm going to give the balance to the argument. Can you imagine if all the meat eaters in the world decided that rats were a delicacy? We would have no problems. No problems.
David, one-third of the world already sees rats and cats and bats as delicacy.
You know, I thought that was a joke, but then all of a sudden, Christ, Andrew. Seriously. All right. I remember Andrew and myself in a restaurant in Colorado. The first time I ate vegan mac and cheese, I floated up to the ceiling. He couldn't talk to me anymore. Like, I wasn't hearing anything him or Allison was saying at the time. I was like enraptured, like, this is what I've been missing out.
It was cashew milk. And then they made the pasta out of gluten-free. I don't remember what it was, but David's like, this is a real place. This is not a fairy tale, a vegan's fairy tale. No, it was a real place.
That was the first time I've actually eaten mac and cheese, for real. Okay.
What did it do to you, David, when with each bite?
I wish I could show you the face.
Talk to me. He couldn't talk to me. I was less in my own space, right, in my own dimension. Just leave me alone with my little bowl of mac and cheese. The next question I have for you guys is celibacy the highest form of spirituality that there is?
Nope.
No.
No, you get blue nut.
Yo, Laura, I didn't like the way you just said no. That no was
No.
God, I hope it isn't.
The phallus is there to be used. There's a reason why you've got a phallus, to experience it.
Sexual energy is a very potent energy.
Yes.
And a very beautiful energy. So why would you be celibate and then think yourself highly spiritual?
You see that Freudian slip she just had? Why would you celebrate celibate? Right? You caught that, right? Woman, did I just horrify you? What if celibacy, what if the only way to attain enlightenment was to be celibate? What would we do?
Or on the opposite side of the scale.
The Catholic priest would love that shit.
Yeah.
You do
Where
realize,
does that come from? Where's it from? Is this some religious orders? And what's,
Not the Puritans.
what's the point behind it?
originally, from what I can see, it came from the Mahabharata. It's old East Indian. You see, I told you about the dumb yogis. I told you all about it. I warned you all already, right? It's from these dumb yogis. So this is basically what it is. Back in the day, when people wanted to make this big ostentatious display of how pious they were, they would give up sex, right? Because it's India. It's not like you can pick up the chick downtown. You have to go a few miles without any vehicle. Okay, so they decided to do that kind of thing, and so inside the whole yoga system, the niyamas have something called brahmacharya, which is continence of the sense. The yamas is a restraint that you put on yourself. Have this thing that says that you have to contain your sensual desires, and people have interpreted it to mean that you're supposed to be celibate. Okay, but we see how that worked out for the Catholic priest. So we see how that shit worked out, right?
I wonder how many priests actually drop the nut, and don't say anything. I'm sure it'd be like 85% of them.
Yeah. The worst part about that was them trying to bury that stuff, right? So that nobody would actually find it, right? Find out. The next question. Spirituality has more to do with the display of spirituality, fake it till you make it, than it has to do with any authentic practice of any kind.
Absolutely not. But if people even had a concept of that particular question, then they would be in a much different place. So that even just that belief itself would lead you to the opposite. But that's not even in the belief system. Most people can't assimilate what spirituality is, so they just assimilate its appearance. For most people, that is their first step into spirituality as a fashion.
Another thing to see is the traditions, and you do think out of tradition, those versus those who actually practice the traditions.
Yeah.
Many people in the major religions go out of tradition, but they have no faith behind it, no practice behind the actual traditions that are behind it. And unfortunately, that converts over into modern neo-spiritualistic growth.
I keep having this conversation with spiritual people. I'm like, just put on a turban, man. Just put on a turban, and everything will be fine. All of a sudden, you will have great ideas that you never had before and stuff like that. Wearing the costume of spirituality and being that, because when people hear spirituality, they expect it to come in a particular form. You know that, right?
Yes.
Like, if I was walking down the street and looked at you, I'm like, that's a shaman? Let me judge. You see what I mean? What about Laura? If I was walking out, Laura, actually, you would pass. Because I'm saying, yeah, she definitely smoking weed. She just came out of I mean, like, she just came out of the 60s. I can see hippie written all over her. She got the feathered earrings and so on. People have an idea of what spirituality looks like. They absolutely do. What are the myths about spirituality? That you're speaking softly and you're not expressing yourself. Like, you speak like this. Oh, everything.
Don't get angry.
Talk about updates and all the fucking time and the moon updates. I'm just going through these updates.
You're not allowed to be human, and you are absolutely infallible. And when you make a mistake, you're not real anymore.
Yeah, and also the fact that everything external of you is more powerful than you could ever possibly be.
Yeah.
Correct.
You're waiting for your DNA crystallization.
Or even just ghosts.
You don't have to do anything. You actually don't have to do anything. It will all be done for you as long as you wear the right clothes. And you spout off now and again about ascension and the reset.
All right. So the next thing, in order to be spiritual, you have to be airy, fairy, woo-woo, and have your head in the clouds.
And like fluffy kittens.
I see that as not spiritual at all. I see someone who's more of a human, more grounded, more understands their own values and their own traditions, how to respect people when they talk and listen. I think they're even more spiritual than the people saying they're spiritual. Like meeting people like Laura, Andrew, yourself. You're very grounded people, and you've not lost that human value of yourself. You're still a fucking human at the end of the day. You're not playing this facade of this character, which I was a fucking character.
Yeah.
And I got shot down in many layers, and I had to go through a fucking big death.
You had a turban? You had no turban?
No turban. I was just full activated
You have a
lightworker
long
mode.
top at least.
The thing is, with a lot of these people that are like that, with their heads in the clouds, and it's a lot of them are actually psychic people. They are actually people that have gifts and talents. There's just absolutely no discipline behind it, no structure. Therefore, it's just feral energy, and they get overtaken by it. I've experienced that as well in my earlier days. But you see this a lot with mediums, that don't have real discipline, practice, and what's the word?
Because most of them want the work to be done for them, or they want to start as a master and will never actually put the effort or time in to become the master.
Yeah.
And there's so many people, they get a YouTube channel, they start channeling this and that, and the next thing they know, intergalactic forces are attacking to them, and they're shrugging it off like a superhero in the universe all the time.
We know a few of those.
Yes. Yes.
Why did you have to go there? Why?
Because I'm special.
Listen to me. We're going down the rabbit hole. You started it, I'm going down the rabbit hole. The next question. Everything that goes wrong in my life is because the demons and the intergalactic forces are after me.
Because I'm special. I'm so special that they're just after me.
Yeah, you special. Yeah, like.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Until they can perceive you, until you able to attain a level of freedom within the universe that you get their attention, which is years of discipline and mastery and practice. So really you're just happily plodding along, giving energy to the system. No one's going to bother you.
And please don't go on any galactic missions on my behalf, because that's treading on my journey.
Yeah.
Isn't that odd?
But Lord, they saved your life 1,000,000 times, and you don't give them any respect for it.
Yeah, that's what they say they've done.
I gotta ask these kinds of questions, which brings me to the other thing. A lot of spiritual people are fairly crazy. True or false?
True.
Yeah.
True.
I consider myself pretty bonkers, to be honest, David.
Yeah, but we're talking about
yeah, but you're organized. You're organized bonkers. You're not different.
Organized bonkers. I love that. That's
true.
a t-shirt.
It helps me.
And a lot of non-spiritual people actually take on far more responsibility for their own growth, self-empowerment, and getting rid of that, healing themselves and getting rid of inner trauma than a lot of so-called spiritual people do. And they don't realize how actually spiritual they are being.
Yeah.
Because they're taking on the responsibility of doing the work.
And not even knowing they're doing the work.
Yeah.
Like someone who comes out of an addiction. So they saw someone who's in a heavy class A addiction, and they manage to turn their life around and get their life back. That's a huge spiritual experience, more than any fucking stupid, yoga retreat or anything like that, or ayahuasca session. That's something big.
Oh, I have another shitty spiritual thought. Spiritual people should not curse. Go.
Oh, fuck off.
Bollocks.
Fuck off is right.
Cunt.
Channel removed.
I am beginning to really enjoy this persona. I think I'm going to keep it for the next 5 days. All right. So there's a judgment that goes around where spiritual people who just try to live normal lives, right? Like like that striped shirt that you wear there, Dale. Like, yo, like imagine you there with a hat, and Laura came with a like, and Andrew's not even on the freaking screen. Like, there's a natural judgment that a lot of spiritual people have, especially when they come from these anal kind of spiritual paths, right? Where you're supposed to look or sound or be a certain way, right? And they don't understand that their judgment is exactly what's blocking them from moving anywhere.
Their greatest limitation is their expectation.
Okay, so the next shitty spiritual thought came from a religious person who said the following to me, so I feel I need to share it with you all because your day is going too well. He said, the majority of spiritual people are just people that weren't disciplined and pious enough to make it in the religious path. So they just go to the... I'm sorry, did that trigger y'all? So they fall into the spirituality thing because it's easier.
Well, that's self-validation, right?
No, I actually want to say there's some truth. There is some truth to that. Oh. If you couldn't hack it in the fucked up religions, okay, you're going to have to make your own, okay? Yeah. And it's not going to look pretty.
This is something that a lot of people say in the religious community, right? I took it upon myself because I wanted to actually bring a religious person on to debate with me on the concept of spirituality. I think that would be a very interesting show. Yeah. Because that person went to school, they have the theological degrees and stuff like that. I wanted to bring him on to have a reasonable debate because he's arguing for the text, the biblical or the Judeo Christian text. Yeah. And I'm like, but it's just a bunch of words on a page. And he says, no, this is the word of God. But the argument that they usually have is that you should do this because it's in the Bible and the Bible is the word of God, right? Whereas the spiritual people say, yo, why don't you try being a decent person first before you start reading books? Okay? Yeah. Before you start reading books.
The problem is that once you rely on a book to answer a question, it's no longer philosophical or spiritual. For then it's indoctrination, and it's a limitation because there's no depth behind it. So you're not using your own wisdom in order to answer the question or to relate to the question. Not all of them are like that, of course, because I've met some wonderful Christians, some that I've really bonded with and could be friends and brothers with forever, you know. But it's the reliance on the scripture like that. It's just that just says I haven't got an answer for you.
Yeah, it's like lightworkers, isn't it?
Or my answer is predetermined. My answer is predetermined. Therefore, I'm not using my free will to actually answer you.
We had a conversation like that this morning, Laura. Is when people start outsourcing their brain power to other people to answer their questions for them. It's messed up, right? Which brings us to the next shitty spiritual thought. Spiritual people are sheep. They follow. They do not lead.
Kind of correct.
Unfortunately, that one has a lot of truth to it too.
Yeah, kind of correct.
Okay. And after a while, you got to learn to be the black sheep without a herd. And then after a while, there's a whole bunch of black sheep on the far side of the field the ranchers aren't taking care of anymore. But they call those conspiracy sheep. Okay.
Yeah.
They've been expelled from the herd. Okay.
Boy.
Meanwhile, the lone wolves wander between the sheep, free.
Finding that courage to be the self-master instead of following a guru who claims they're the master, but you can't receive mastership.
Yeah.
I will say something. A lot of people, they come onto this path, and what happens over a period of time is that they realize how easy it is to just outsource the salvation or whatever else, right? And I'm like, that's what the guys in the religious circle are doing, okay? They're outsourcing it to the Pope or whatever else, right? And so let's say, as an example, when I started teaching yoga, on the form that you filled out, I said to these people, there is no guru here. I said it, no guruism here. We're not promoting that kind of hierarchical, I'm a guru, you're whatever. despite that, the graduates of some of my yoga courses put on white robes. Have you seen me? Like, I'm the teacher. The graduates put on white robes and went down that guruism path nonetheless. So there's something attractive about it that keeps bringing people. And I think it's the power.
And arrogance. Pure arrogance. A lot
It's
of them,
the
like
power of other people.
I know a few people who've gone down that path of just full arrogance into that mode of wanting to be higher than everyone else.
Brings us to the next
Right.
spiritual thought. A lot of spiritual people believe that they are better than others. Go.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of truth to that one too.
Yeah.
Oh, you're not doing favors for the spiritual community right now, Andrew.
Yeah, how many spiritual Kens and Karens do we know whose Facebook page dominates the common words, or this idiot and that asshole arguing over this idiotic subject matter and that idiotic subject matter, and everybody's subject matter is more important than anybody else's subject matter, run by a zealot who believe theirs way is the only way.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. All right. So the next
So
question.
how do you wade through all of that? That's the big journey for the spiritual person, is how do you wade through all the Karens and Kens?
Well, the truth of the matter is it's very difficult too, and a lot of people, when they come onto that path, because they're inundated, and social media has not done the spiritual community any favors. Okay, anybody with some mental illness can jump on social media and make a post. Now, you would think that it would be easy to discern crazy from not crazy. But I realized that a lot of people, even in the spiritual community for years, Andrew, for decades, they can't discern between crazy and non-crazy. And I'm like wondering why.
So, David, you were a psychotherapist for how many years? You know, doing hundreds of clients every month. And then when you met me and you saw the crazies around me, what did you think then?
I was actually fascinated. I thought about all the white papers I could write, just being around you enough so that I could actually get information for my white papers. But what did I think? I thought, like, what is going on here? Because I speak to you, I hear what you're saying. I have a brain, so I process what you're saying. They also hear the same message, Andrew. They hear the same message, and they do something completely different from what you're saying.
Yep.
So I am thinking a large part of spirituality is a concept of perception, how the receiver of a message perceives the message, right?
Exactly. How they receive it and apply it to their own fantasy world.
And is that where the ego starts to overrun?
Well, the ego created the fantasy world, and we just live in it, and that's how it convinces us to be out of body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it's the same everywhere. I think that when it is that people hear a message, as an example, Jesus died for your sins. We must kill all the non-believers. That's totally what he said. Well, how do you jump from one to another, right? Or like spiritual people talking about the concept of silence and meditation, right? And then conducting classes, spiritual classes, where nobody's supposed to talk. We're in the silence. That's not what that means. That's not what that means. That's not what that means. But they haven't gotten the idea, which brings me to the next John Doe statement, and I have it for the shamans in the group. You guys ready?
Yes.
That shamanism thing is all that shamanism thing and spirituality along the natural path guidelines is just an attempt to keep people dumbed down and backward in the way they approach the world. And as I'm talking from people I've heard speak, right? And as a doctor myself, I can tell you that all that shamanism thing is just keeping people ignorant. Go. Don't all speak at the same time.
I think it's when you don't hold
Go
a
ahead.
name on yourself.
To
Like shamanism, don't get encased in it and just think, oh, I'm a shaman. It's when you have labels, but I think that kind of like limits you when you've got a label on yourself. When you call yourself this, you call yourself that. Fair enough, we do shamanism. We maybe are shamans in different areas, but I think when you hold yourself back when you call yourself a shaman or a light worker, and I think giving yourself as a light worker is pure a path of being a zealot, being a martyr. Where you miss the unlimited point of view. It's completely disappeared from you. It's the same with shamanism as well. If you're that engrossed in being a shaman, being a natural way of living, sometimes you can miss the unlimited point of view and seeing the bigger picture of everything.
You need to hold yourself accountable.
Well, accountability? What? What?
Yes,
What's that?
exactly.
It doesn't apply to most of them. So, David, I have a different answer to your question. Statement said by a doctor.
Mhm.
Well, what gives the doctor the authority over anyone else?
Mm-hmm.
And this is where a lot of spiritual people get huffy and allow the ego to take over. Just because somebody has a doctor in front of their name or this or that certification doesn't make them any better than anyone else. Half the people with MBAs are morons to begin with.
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't trust them with a dime.
True that.
Okay. Same thing applies to shamans at
Yeah,
times. I would a lot of them wouldn't trust them with a single ounce of my energy at all.
I think the argument that is made by people like doctors and so on against shamanism and anything spiritual is the argument of science versus the unknown.
Right.
Now, here's the problem, right? Here's the problem.
Yeah.
Their interpretation of what science is that a thing is scientific when it produces repeatable results that can be duplicated over time. Okay? And I'm like, what you mean, like meditation as an example? Right? You mean like meditation as an example? You mean like being a good person and having good health? You mean like that shit? You mean like that shit? So I think a lot of the time when people make these arguments, it's along the lines of we're scientific and you guys are not.
Right. And the same thing can go to exorcism. Okay. Exorcism is a known science in religion, but it's not going to be exposed to the real scientists, is it?
No.
This is the thing that gets me, because as a scientist, if they did follow the evidence, they would see the truth in these things. So they clearly haven't applied a scientific structure or a scientific experimentation method to these forms of spirituality, because otherwise they would come across something, or they're just lying.
Yeah, I have another angle on that too. Look at the scientific experiment, the experiments that were done in the name of science. Science has a dark history, right? It does. The Milgram experiments, what does it reveal about human nature? For those of you who don't know what the Milgram experiments are, they hooked some actor up to an electrode, and they had a man in a white lab coat tell people that if we ask this person a question and they give the wrong answer, you are supposed to press the button to shock that person. These were normal, everyday people. Okay, so it was a kind of fake setup where they had an actor. So when the actor answered the question wrong, the scientist in the lab coat told the regular person, press the button. And the person pressed the button and the actor would cry out in pain. And every time they got the answer wrong, the person would keep pressing the button to increase the voltage to that person. You know how many people went through that test, right? And pressed the button until the person stopped moving, the actor stopped moving. They were willing to kill that person for the man in the white lab coat.
Yes, the authority granted by the lab coat.
What does that say? Not good.
The boomer generation suffers from that terribly. Believe the doctor only.
Yes, correct. Here's the thing. A lot of people, they want something that's verifiable. Okay? The problem is in spirituality, Nobody's going to verify shit for you. You have to verify it for yourself.
Mm.
And a lot of
And
people
how do you self-validate, which is the biggest journey of being spiritual, self-validation.
Why are you bringing me across to the side? I'm being John Doe today. I am ignorant as shit. Okay, I'm being John Doe. Like you have me talking on the other.
See, right. Even John Doe, ignorant Doe, could be illuminated.
Listen, I'm being ignorant John Doe today. All right, right. Let me ask you. Let me go to the next thing. Ignorant John Doe says, all this woo-woo stuff is an excuse for you guys not to face the real world. Boom.
Well, this
I can see
stuff helped me.
I could see that perspective. I could totally see how they would think that, though.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, I can as well.
Yeah.
Because I get that question a lot, and people say it to me a lot, and all I just say back to them is that it got me out of such a dark place within my life, and it made me a responsible person of who I am today. The person I look back there who was irresponsible, who didn't have these ways, was an idiot. I was lost. And to who I am now, I'm in such a good state. I'm in joy. I'm in happiness. So I just tell them my life story, and that's why I do it, because it validates me and makes me feel great. I don't go into it like a debate. As soon as I say that, no one says anything. They're like, oh, cool. It worked for you then? I was like, yeah, it did. Mm-hmm. Full stop.
It helps you navigate the world, though, doesn't it? That's what it does.
Yes, definitely, Laura.
Which brings me to the next.
Hold on. Part of the spiritual journey is finding your way and not somebody else's way. And the journey to finding your way, you will be judged at what your way is until judgment external no longer matters any. And that internal validation, this is my way, and I will make mistakes my way, but I accept all those mistakes as I grow through them.
Yep.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Validation will come.
Thank you for that, because John Doe responds to you. We're having since I can't get regular people, priests and stuff to come debate with you guys and myself, I will adopt the persona. And the response that I have to that is that ignorant John Doe says, there is no such thing as practical spirituality, because nothing in spirituality can be ultimately verified in the here and now.
So how can you validate you in the here and now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. What proof do you have you exist?
That is a cheap freaking answer.
What is validation for you?
That's not even fair what you just did. Right, so John Doe replies, the here and now is like practical things. You got to pay bills, you got to get out, and you got to take the children to school, and so on and so on. And a lot of spiritual people are very much deadbeats. They don't do anything.
So what you're talking about is the power of now, which is the basis of all spirituality, acting in the now, and all the responsibility that comes with being in the now.
You know, this is why you don't have any friends in the real world. Anyway, let me move on to the next issue. So John Doe says spirituality is a science that is not, a practice that is not very structured. There is no structure to it, and anything without structure will lay you open to moving in directions that you are not prepared to go.
Unfortunately, all spirituality is about structure, and for that statement is so ignorant to begin with. I don't even think even an ignorant person as you could write an even more ignorant statement. That's an unstructured, ignorant statement.
Yeah, but it is a real belief. So you guys gotta deal with that. Spirituality is unstructured, and because there is no structure, I didn't remember. John Doe didn't say it was spiritual. I could be an atheist scientist. Remember, right?
Yes.
You guys gotta deal with that comment, right? Spirituality is unstructured, and because there's no structure, it will lead you down places that you don't want to go. It's kind of like getting into a car and pressing the gas and not holding onto the steering wheel. Go ahead.
Which is what 90% of spiritual people are actually doing. So he's totally correct in a way as well. Structure is one of the things that is missing from a lot of spiritual people's practices. That I see anyway. Obviously, not the religions.
They're not spiritual until they have the practice, and they don't have the practice until they have a structure.
Yeah. And a discipline.
Yeah, but why would they do that though? Why would they engage in a practice that has no direction?
So why would you learn to write and read and write?
No, wait. Reading and writing, language has structure. Hello.
Yes. So does spirituality. It has its own language. Did you just choose not to learn or have a part of your structure?
Point well taken. Next question. Next question. In terms of spiritual practices, there are many and varied. Some say the natural way is a good way. Some say that if you just meditate, it's all you need. Some say I chant a psalm a day and I feel better. What practices are truly authentic and which practices are not truly authentic? And if there are no such thing as truly authentic practices, what is the point? What is the point? I could just simply I don't know, beat my head against a wall and call it spirituality. Go ahead.
So authentic practice is joy, happiness, being yourself, smiling when you do the shit, not looking like you're so fucking serious all the time. When you do a practice, smiling, enjoying it, seeing your growth, seeing your hindsight, seeing your foresight, looking back at the past self and going, holy shit, look how far I've gone. Just being you, figuring out who the fuck you are as well. A lot of times people go into spirituality and they finally figure out who they are. They start molding that, like hitting down these layers and layers of these old selves. Like now I feel like I've found myself. I can truly be happy in who I am. I can truly be happy in my body and enjoy other people's company and so on. Before that person 10 years ago, I couldn't do that. Finding yourself again, looking and searching like the eagle searching for its prey. That's what you got to look for. You got to look for that smile, that person, instead of the programs always running you all the time. And always kind of like being the puppet is trying to figure out who the puppet master is, which one's you, which one's not you, then laughing at it, not getting overwhelmed with the programs, seeing them for what they are, but not allowing them to scare the shit out of you. That was a big growth for me. Just laughing at them going, oh, I can see you there.
When you talk about authenticity, the authenticity comes from the practitioner, not the practice. Mm-hmm. Any practice can be authentic if the practitioner is authentic. It comes down to belief and, whatever unlimited point of view. Anything can be a practice if you believe in your practice.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you put the heart-spaced effort into it.
Yeah, heart connected, source connected, expressing yourself at your highest possible expression of where you are at that time.
I have questions.
The curveballs here.
John
I have answers.
Yeah.
John says, as part of my spirituality, I will engage in coitus, sexual intercourse with the sheep outside in my yard. And remember that spiritual practice lies with the practitioner, not the practice. So I see nirvana through Betsy the sheep. Okay.
I would say, John, journal everything. Let me know how you get on with it.
Let me know how it goes.
How it works for you.
I'm sorry.
Any words of wisdom, Andrew, for that?
Followed by police sirens. Followed by police sirens.
Followed by police sirens. Correct. The next question, because there are a lot of people. John Doe says a lot of spiritual people who claim to be spiritual are some of the most evil people on earth. The Killing Fields being one of them. Ashoka murdered the entire continent before he decided, you know what? Maybe killing people is not the way. Right? Right? Explain.
You're right.
Yeah. And a lot of non-spiritual people are are the same.
I think more people have been killed in the name of a god than have been killed by atheists.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what happens when an atheist kills someone? To them, nothing, right? Do they have guilt, shame, blame? Do they feel emotionally? Yes, that's all things that are denied in a greater purpose, greater aspect. But killing in the name of a god or a spirit has been ancient in human beings. And it's part of the grander growth of being spiritual is to stop doing that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Point well taken.
Stop fucking the local sheep.
Yeah. And cutting their heads off and throwing it down.
This is true. So I suppose my next question, which is a question of practicality, there's such a thing as spiritual psychology. That's what they tell me. Okay. Whereupon the individual becomes aware of themselves as a being existing in space and time and creation and all that. And all of that sounds pretty until you have somebody in the middle of Walmart talking to their ancestors in aisle 7 when you try to get when you just try to
Well,
buy
I've been that person. I talked to my ancestors in aisle 7. They have lots of wisdom. They tell me where the specials are and what meat I should and should not eat.
Right, until you have somebody in aisle 7 talking to their ancestors. So when is spirituality and the expression of the spiritual psychology appropriate? Is there ever a time when it's appropriate and not appropriate? Because a lot of people have a problem with appropriateness. Go ahead.
Sure. In your sacred expressions of your spirit, yes. And then when there's the non-sacred recreational side is one's personal determination. But if you have like the Watchtower people knocking on your door on Sunday morning and you tell them no 4 times in a row and they keep coming back, they're zealots. They don't want not wanted there.
Yeah.
The same thing with people trying to sell me on the next conspiracy. Okay.
Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true. So
I do get those interruptions throughout the day, you know, and a lot of the time people are, you know, being so they pick their moments very well. But there are others where they just comment at the most random moments, and sometimes I'll indulge it, sometimes I won't.
okay.
I can quite easily walk down the aisle and have a conversation, but I won't be focusing on shopping at all. I'll just be pretending to look normal.
Notice how that came across. Notice how that came across there, Maty.
Mm-hmm.
So my question
exactly
is,
as it was meant.
My question is, let me give you a personal experience of mine as John Doe, of course. I went to a retreat in British Columbia. The retreat was all about self-improvement and whatever. During the retreat, we did an exercise where you face the other individual and you ask, tell me who you are not, and tell me who you are, right? You know this exercise, right, Andrew? Yeah. So during this exercise, there's a whole row of people.
Yeah, I do the diets.
Yeah, and a woman started howling like a wolf. Needless to say that would have been distracting slightly. This is why I asked the question about appropriateness and not appropriateness of expressing your spirituality. Some people say that there is no filter, and some people say there must be necessarily a filter. Like, when is it appropriate and when is it not? Or do you just use your common sense?
Filters are something that you develop. They're wisdom that you gain as you go along your journey. They're earned and learned, and they're continuously growing and evolving as you do. Filters are fundamental to be able to function as a practitioner, unless you just want to come off as a gaga who's going to tell everybody at the table, who has no concept of spirituality, all of these crazy, insane things, and just look like a complete weird bastard.
Yeah.
Everywhere you go. And everyone will avoid you.
Okay.
What is your intention behind it as well?
Mm-hmm.
Of doing it? And is the ego running the show then?
Understood. The last, I suppose, I'm not running out of questions. I could do this all day, actually, but here's another question for you guys, right? From John Doe, the ignorant. There is no such thing as spirituality, because what you deem to be spirituality may be the person just simply learning to be a good or decent person. And that has nothing to do with spirituality, because good character exists independently of anything else. Go.
I slightly agree. And I think when we can come to a point where we don't put that spiritual word on it, and that is used to describe becoming a better person, whichever way you can and whichever way you want to, then I think we're onto something.
Anybody else?
So
Go ahead.
everyone has the choice in which the tipping point of faith is a part of them or it isn't. And that very question gets to the tipping point of faith.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? is if faith and the connection to it shows you the path to being a good human being, that's something that can be shared with others. And then if it's faith that's the tipping point that stops you from being an evil rat bastard, then once again, it's that faith that has gotten you through that dark night and showed you a great power inside that is a light, that is something that isn't defined by the world.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Excellent.
It is a spiritual experience.
I suppose my next question is a very cogent one. If that is the case, and if everybody just decided, let's say tomorrow, to get up and decide to be a good person, would you say that we've reached the fifth world of peace?
Nope.
No. I just thought that.
No.
Because it's an earned and learned individual experience, and we don't mystically all experience it all of once, say kumbaya. So,
okay. The next question. All spiritual people, their witness actually hides a deep inadequacy and mental illness. A lot of spiritual people have different personalities and misnomers, and that cannot be psychologically healthy. Coming from a psychologist, coming from a psychotherapist. So yes, I have channeled my inner ignorant John Doe, right? And I'm pulling all the little arguments and I'm throwing them at y'all. Because, yeah, we're not going to get anybody to come and try to debate you also. Yeah, so the fact of the matter is all of them have like different personas. I just expose myself as having different personas.
And psychotherapists don't have grandiose ideas about themselves, and they're not even a real science.
Boom. But my point is that's a good retort. But my point is that like you have people like calling themselves all sorts of weird things like Galactic historian and two feathers, and like I don't understand it. Like why? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, everything that you said is actually true again. And that's why we are into spirituality, because we all do have different versions of ourselves. And as we go on our spiritual journey, we learn that everything you've just said is true. And that's why we go on our spiritual journey, is to correct those parts of us that need to be correct so we can have that happy, joyful life.
And
have
We're
fun.
trying to figure it out with the limitations of English.
Another thing of this big grand journey is going to get a realizing moment. Everyone's version of truth is their truth.
Yeah.
And we can't judge their truth, or we would be putting ourselves right back in the karmic journey of judgment. Therefore, everyone must have their own way in their own time with their own experiences with it, and we cannot forcibly project on them change.
I suppose I have a political question for you. All spirituality is deeply rooted in the concept of communism.
Ooh,
and it's a really pretty way of communist.
Tell the individual shamanic practitioner who doesn't want to be a part of a commune. Okay?
Yeah, but you would admit that if everybody turned spiritual tomorrow and everybody worked in the highest good of each other as opposed to a self-centeredness, then that kind of resembles communism. That's where the argument comes from.
No. Communism is an economic process. It has nothing to do with true philosophy.
Yes, but what it looks like, Andrew. I'm not talking about the actual application of Karl Marx.
Do not judge a book by its cover.
Yeah, I know, but I'm not talking about the application of Karl Marx. I'm talking about what it looks like. And
yeah, I'm quite aware of that. I'm presenting another sly perception of a misperception here. Communism is being forced on us as a way of being kumbaya, everyone get along, but it isn't that.
This is true. But
people will be forced into a caste and a collection they cannot get out of.
Here's another thing. I've met a lot of spiritual people in my life. They're all like miscreants and junkies, and they have no structure, and they don't actually promote anything except the awareness of self, which is in and of itself selfishness. Go.
Well, the nature
We've got
of
some questions for you after this.
is to look at thyself, which is the definition of selfishness.
You have to look at yourself to do the inner healing, to do the inner work.
Yeah, the idea that selfishness is always negative is a misconception. That true selfishness increases your interactions with everyone around you, makes you less selfish in a way, because you learn when to be selfish, when not to.
I'm sorry, you just made John Doe's head explode. Could you please break that down? Remember, I am ignorant, John Doe. You just give me a very highbrow kind of spiritual doctrine there. Could you just break that down?
Caring for the self to be a better person, John, and self-healing is a form of selfishness, if you want to call it that way, but it will benefit other people long term because it benefits those around you when you start to put yourself back in balance.
I'm sorry. I have hi, can I have a question?
Yes, John.
If you must, John, if you must.
Are you saying that by me being selfish, I am somehow helping other people?
Oh, long term, yes. Potentially you are.
So, John Doe, isn't what you're doing selfish?
What is that?
Asking these questions from your own selfish nature as you're judging everyone else.
Yes.
We're doing a reading on a fictitious character now.
Well, John was going to answer you. Well, I'm going to help other people. See, other people are going to be watching this broadcast, and they're going to meet other people like me, and they're going to have to learn how to deal with other people like me. You understand? Especially
John Doe, you are the minority here.
Yes, I'm the minority, but I'm the majority in the world. In the world out there.
Exactly.
My world, my universe. Right, anyway, so you see that selfishness, my world, my universe. So I suppose the next thing that a lot of spiritual people are persnickety and snippy, like that galactic historian guy right there. That guy there, like that guy. So when you meet spiritual people, they often most spiritual people are defensive in defending their belief system, and the defensiveness belies a lack of commitment.
It just shows they haven't got a grasp of the unlimited point of view.
I would say it's a lack of faith as opposed to a lack of commitment.
Impressive. Well, I suppose John Doe has decided to give up. He has a sheep waiting for him.
No.
So I'm going to retire as John Doe. Actually, no. I think I'm going to keep that.
We've got some questions for
Yeah.
you.
I'm going to keep that for the next 5 days. All right, and talk to you all every day.
So John Doe hasn't talked about spiritual dating yet.
Oh shit! Thank you for that. All right.
There's a whole other field for you to attack.
Let me ask you guys a question. Spiritual men are weak, flaky, and fruitarians. That's the word. Weak, flaky fruitarians who are all into their feelings, and nobody wants that mess around them. Go.
Well, unfortunately, there are a lot of them that are like that. And they put a stain on the community. Just like the bad vegans destroy vegetarianism.
And each one of them has their own narcissistic woman that trails them around to all of these places.
I'm getting to the women next, right? Because of that selfishness thing that we just covered with, I'm working on myself. I'm working on myself. I try to right? Because of the I'm working on myself thing, a lot of spiritual people become an inconvenience to people around them because they're so into themselves, they cannot see the forest for the trees, and therefore they become very, very toxic.
Yeah.
Go.
Very true. Unfortunately, very true. But if you take spirituality out, women in general have that. You can just replace it with another subject matter.
The woman on the panel,
like the Karen and Kens.
Directly. The woman on the panel, you, Laura.
That's me.
spiritual women tend to be so airy-fairy that they you just can't communicate with them. As an example, I would say something along the lines of, should we go to, I don't know, give me a UK, Marks and Spencer's, or should we go to Cost Cutters? Okay. And a spiritual woman would say to me, as an example, I don't know. Let's consult the horoscope. Go.
Yeah, there are some like that, and we would call them the light worker spiritual women. They are out there. They are. There's no avoiding it.
Can you describe this beast run by the stars?
Run by the stars.
Unfortunately, yes. So that again is handing all of your own responsibility out to something else, out to another source. Doesn't have to be religion. You could make it astrology. So everything is based on how the stars move.
There's no personal power at all.
Every thought you have is based on the stars.
Yeah, no personal power. It means that you look at, once again, to outside sources that are way more powerful than you or your influence or your journey or all of your great work.
And therefore, you can also blame them when things don't go your way. So it's not taking on the responsibility. It doesn't matter whether you're man or woman. You're just not taking on that self-responsibility.
You do realize that you guys are saying all of this while Venus is in retrograde. You will never find disrespecting Venus like this, right? Right along. The next. Talking about spiritual dating. Spiritual people make horrible lovers because they think too much.
Because they're not in the body. They're always out of the body. They're never actually physically in it. That's why they think too much.
I am really enjoying the show. Right, go ahead. Right. Spiritual people make absolutely horrible lovers because they spend so much time, I'm into myself, or I'm out into the stars and into the universe, right? But I'm not here with you.
They're defending off attacks like Battlestar Galactica from energy.
I've got a command ship in the body. Battlestars.
Can you imagine being amorous with some woman, right, Andrew?
Yeah.
And saying, I need you to move out of the way because I need to shield up because I feel something coming.
David, let me just slide out the way of you.
You're feeling the wrong thing coming. All right, you're feeling the wrong thing coming. Right, could you slide out of the way? Look, guys, that is a valid argument by a lot of God know type people. Spiritual people make horrible lovers because they're so self-absorbed. Go.
It's true.
It's so true. Yes.
Yeah.
It's true. And when they start doing practice and actually like get a little faith in them, they break that shit. But unfortunately, it's true.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
See, John Doe, I told you you'd win on this one.
He's saying a lot of truth, John Doe.
Yeah, exactly.
We're not going to try and convince you otherwise.
Spiritual people are by nature impotent in the sexual arena due to the fact that their attractiveness, and a sense of perspective depends on whether or not the other person perceives them as spiritual. True or false?
False. It's still manual pleasuring. It overrides the ego, and when you manually pleasure a person with your own or others.
Andrew, no, that's not true, and I'll tell you why. Because if you manually pleasure the other person as a manual thing, then you have made that other person your hand. You feel me, my son?
No. They are your puppets.
That extra hand that you have, which is never a good thing, right? It's not cool, right?
No, it can be very cool. It's the person that's good experiencing the power of the hand, followed up by the power of the other parts and the other parts and the other parts.
You made that person an extension of yourself, and that is the inherent.
The sex puppet. They become the sex puppet, the Muppet.
Correct. Right, and so that can't be a good thing, can it, guys? I mean, nope. I'm just asking a question.
You get a tomato, especially when it comes to intimate pleasures. Everyone's a little different.
You know,
Come on,
See,
John Doe.
inverted tantra
What are
teacher.
your things that get you off, John Doe?
you know, one of the things that I would say to that, if I was a spiritual person, is, well, we live in a universe where all of us are one. So if I'm having sex with you, I'm actually having sex with me. So it's the same.
Great pickup line.
Did you message them at 11:11, David? Oh, sorry, John.
And besides, Venus is in retrograde anyway, so why do I have to care about you? Anyway, but right, with regard to spiritual dating, let's talk about spiritual long-term relationships. The nature of spirituality is such that theoretically, you talk about timelessness, right? Timelessness and lack of space and so on. Is that in and itself not a good idea when you're talking about long-term relationships? Because spiritual people need their space to be without space.
Sometimes they need whole lifetimes as a space.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But non-spiritual people also need their space.
Yeah, but not as much as spiritual people. Because if you're going to go missing for 20 minutes a day, let's say you're involved with somebody like John Doe, who is not very spiritual, you're going to go missing for 20 minutes a day. And for 20 minutes a day or an hour a day, depending on whether you're putting out C+ effort or A+ effort, as an example, some friend of mine has put that shit out there into the world, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to be
So
missing,
you know your shit, John. You know your shit.
if you're going to be missing for that amount of time, then I'm going to guess that might be a problem. I don't know. If you have kids, that might be a problem. So where does A+ effort, when it intersects with somebody with 4 kids, how does it work?
Once
Go.
again, I agree with you, because in many like raising a family and marriages, spirituality is a long-term commitment, and over 10 years of spiritual practice, you're not the same person as you were in the beginning. Therefore, it is an absolute risk to long-term relationships. Not always,
And
but
it
it's
makes you a better
potential.
father as well. So when you're doing that work, you're more relaxed, you're not overwhelmed. So when you do come in to see the kids, you're more of a relaxed, happy person. So it works, but it's not getting too obsessed. And if something happens where you can't do the extra 10 minutes, and so be it, don't hold on to it. Just get on with it.
And if you do your own inner work, so you're not projecting your shit onto your partner.
Oh, I see. But here's the thing, to do the inner work, you would need to disappear into the self, wouldn't you not?
You need time to do that, yeah, whether it be journaling, whatever. But in any non-spiritual relationship, each partner should have their own space to do. If it's non-spiritual, they'll be doing non-spiritual stuff. But you need your own space at times in a day, yes.
So hold on, I got one. So John Doe, when you go off to masturbate by yourself because your wife's rejected you, isn't that the same thing?
I actually thought
Yeah,
that
but
one.
John Doe is married with kids, so that comment doesn't even come into play. John Doe is married with kids. We're not talking about any voodoo priest or galactic historian that's off like in chronic masturbation land. We're talking about John Doe. We're talking about John Doe, right?
Right.
So John Doe is probably married with kids, and the reason why John Doe would ask that question is because if you have, I spoke to a mother yesterday. John Doe spoke to a mother yesterday, and she was messaging me, and she says, "Would you like to know what having kids is like?" And I said, "Go ahead." And she says, "I'm in the bath, and my kid wants to come in and use the toilet." I'm like, the horror, right? And so when we're talking about spiritual practice for someone who's committed to the spiritual life, the concept of space when it comes to kids becomes very problematic, does it not? And we have 3 people on this panel with kids, so don't even try to remain silent. I'll call you all out by name. Go ahead.
It gets to the point where if one of them does come in, I don't get triggered anymore. I used to do back in the day, but not anymore. I just see it, then I just roll with it, then get back on the train and continue on. Obviously, you've got to teach them some sort of respect about your own boundaries, your own space to let down, to be a better person. But it's just about not being triggered by them. And if they do come in and jump on you, just let them jump on you. And don't let it spoil you. Don't let it change it or cancel or completely annihilate the work you've done. Just continue on. And that's something I've learned from Andrew a lot, is just continue on.
I have a question on what.
Yeah. Don't be a zealot, but use your boundaries.
All right. So I'm a shaman, right? Theoretically. John Doe decides to become a shaman.
John Doe decided to take a shamanism certificate.
He has his cleansing fire. He has his cleansing fire out in the backyard, right? Right, and he's throwing his stuff into the fire, right? Kid comes down, daddy, can we play? And the kid is jumping around the blocks. Do you think that might interrupt spiritual practice? Yes, no. Or does he say, please go ahead, play in the fire?
No, he brings the child into this. What I found is that there's some points where I'll be like, okay, sorry guys, but this isn't a good time. Obviously, you can see that I'm in ceremony. I know. Maybe somebody else can help you. You know, you have to learn that over them. Get the fuck away, because you ruin everything. You know. So as a parent, you have to learn to adapt and overcome. And but other times it can be joyous to bring them in. So sometimes when they're showing that attention, you can focus it in a way where they can join with you, and you can bring that innocence in and step down your seriousness. So sometimes children can absolutely be a blessing.
Thank you, Maty. I'm going to go with the parenting thing now. Thank you, Andrew, for the dating. Now you took me down another path. As a parent, it is irresponsible of you to push spirituality or teach spirituality to your kid who is going into public school system and so on. Discuss.
Well, it's irresponsible to push it whether they're going into public school system or not. It's not something you want to push, is it? You want to give them their childhood, as I've heard Andrew say very recently. Let your children play and learn through play and learn to work out their world and be a human first before you force anything on. Well, you shouldn't be forcing it on them before you put anything to them. And it can be just gentle things. I mean, learning how to use a compass is not necessarily spiritual, but shamans do it because they want to know the direction. So it can be done in a very gentle way without forcing anything on them, and also making it fun and making it playful.
And when kids get it forced on them, majority of them turn and flip and hate spirituality when they're older anyway. So you've just lost. You've literally just eaten your own tail when you do it. Yeah.
And the thing is that through my spiritual practices, you know, it's obvious that I do them every day. And so I just do what I do and live my life the way I live my life. And my children get to see my ups, my downs, my ins, my outs, my greatest successes, some of my mistakes, and they get to see that. And when they want to show interest and they want to co-create and come over and join in, then I'm there for them to do that. You know, and I do share wisdom with them, but I make sure it's not delivered in a way that's totalitarian or oppressive.
Is it possible, however, if you are into spirituality, a lot of people don't know where the boundary is, to not transfer your ideas about the world onto a kid, because we would like to live in a society where people were completely self-aware. But if you are on a spiritual journey, you're on your way to becoming self-aware. And so you're going to make mistakes even as a parent. And those mistakes, when they come from a spiritual point of view, might seriously mess up your kids.
I know a lady who has a child.
You guys have an example.
Yeah, I know a lady who has a child. I know lots of people who have children that have spiritual gifts. Children generally tend to. I know one lady who is into spirituality who has one of her children sees auras quite a lot, quite strong. And she has taught her that red is a dangerous color. So every time that red is present or she sees red, then it's a dangerous situation. Something's wrong. And that's, you know, spiritual terrorism through ignorance.
Agreed. Do you see the point there?
Yes. Yeah. So ignorant John Doe. I have a question for you.
For me, yes, a married man with kids. Go ahead, tell me.
Yeah, a married man with kids who's talking about spirituality. Okay. What do you want for your kids?
Well, I just want them to grow up to be decent people, you know. I want them to go out and chart their. I can't even hold that ignorance for that long. But I want them to go out and chart their own paths. I want them to be happy. I want them to be fulfilled. I want them to be
Sovereign.
Yeah.
Isn't that a spiritual word?
It is totally not a spiritual word. What the hell? All right. It's not a spiritual. Well, yeah, I suppose it is a spiritual word. It is a spiritual word. Yeah, that is a good point. That is a good point.
So John Doe, if one of your child decides to become a shaman and wants to talk about it at the dinner table, would you allow him?
No, because I'm John Doe.
No, because
No, of course not.
No,
I'm
I'm
What the
John
hell
Doe.
are you talking about? Right? No, what the hell are you talking about? No, like spiritual people. If your kid comes to the table, I would probably have an argument and a discussion with him. And
Doesn't
then
that make you as bad as spiritual people then?
one second. You gave me a scenario, so I should answer it. If my kid came to the table and started talking about other stuff, I would probably have a debate with them, and then I would bring out the duct tape. A lot of it, right? So my point is that you have a point with regard to teaching children about sovereignty and being aware of themselves, right? But by that same token, remember, children and the family unit exist in an ecosystem of grandparents, cousins, uncles, whatever, and
Living ancestors.
and ancestors. Well,
Living ancestors who have
Right.
memories of the non-living ancestors.
and so if I have the child at the table talking about there's a demon behind you, grandfather, and grandfather is a Christian, that may be a problem.
Yes.
That may be a problem. But I do see the point about sovereignty. That's actually a good point you just made. I didn't actually think about that argument. I'm going to have to counter that argument by saying sovereignty tends to make people selfish. Yes or no?
Yes. Because the whole journey of sovereignty is to discover the layers of selfishness that are selfish and are damaging the self.
Mm-hmm. Boom.
Point. I don't know. That word selfish is given a bad rap because I think selfish and self-centered are two different words.
Yes, very different words to define differently too.
Why am I having this discussion with y'all? I'm John Doe. I'm not going to have that discussion with y'all. I'm just going to tell y'all how bad y'all are destroying society, right? I'm not going to have that discussion.
So now we give John Doe some ayahuasca.
We converted
Guys, I am out. So what do you think for the people in the chat who are watching this? Or those of you who will be watching this again, you're going to run into John Doe. You might run into me in the supermarket. I might start talking to you like that, just so.
So John Doe, have you met a Karen Doe?
Oh yes, yeah.
They're like you, but even worse.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Karen Does for a second.
Karen Does are the kind of people who will run up to you, and they will
thump the Bible at you, call you an uncircumcised Philistine. Real backstory. Real conversation. Somebody said that to David.
Yeah, for real. One of these days, we're going to have to make a list of everything that you've been called on your journey to being a spiritual person. Okay? Right, and we need to do a comparison. Okay, I've been called an uncircumcised Philistine from somebody who I'm wondering do you know what I'm saying? Like, what the hell? So that's a Karen. That's a Karen Doe. And Karen would run up to you and be in the wrong kind of mindset, and they'll thumb the Bible at you, and anything that you say is coming directly against the Bible. right? I have had those kinds of experiences, right? And then the only thing that came to mind when I was accosted in this way was, how do you know I'm uncircumcised or not? Like, that's something I was thinking, like that just came from where? Where the hell did that come from? Right? Right, which belies the way that she thinks. Karen, those are very warped in their thinking because they have emotionality on board, Andrew. Right?
Yep.
They have emotionality on board, and the emotionality is what drives them. So you can't have a discussion with them, right? John Doe will argue with you. Karen Doe comes to tell you how you should be.
Exactly. Tell you how you should be. And when you don't agree with her, she will go crazy on you.
Mhm.
She will go
And
full
Laura
light
will
worker.
come up and hug her. It's okay. Don't worry. I'll
Be at
hug and love
peace.
you. Yeesh.
I have another way. I'm going to use your method and say, come hug me with my uncircumcised self. Come.
What would you do to a Karen now, Laura? So, ask you the same question.
Now,
what would you do now?
well, I think we said afterwards, didn't I? I should have said, how's that working for you? Do you remember?
No one will ever love you.
Yes, that was the best one from Dale. Yeah.
I'm waiting to say it, I'm waiting for the moment a Karen pulls me up
How
and
can
looks at me
anybody
and I
ever
can
love
look
you?
her dead in the eye and go,
Yeah.
no one's ever going to fucking love you.
The thing about the crazy spirituals and the crazy Karen Does is that they're very easy to trigger. Okay?
Mhm.
So they're very easy to trigger, like the crazy spiritual people. Like you could send them a message saying, yeah, your galactic mission has failed.
Yep,
Just
the
going to slide
galactic
out
mission has
again.
failed. So while John Doe and Karen Doe are still around for a second, we have very, very mythologically misunderstood date coming up called the Lion's Gate.
Ooh.
Now, for years and years and years, I have always warned the Lion's Gate always brings something negative for those who have not practiced, who have been faking their practice, who are fake it to make it. So all these things we talked about in this spiritual show, if you identified to any one of them, this Lion's Gate is for you and for you alone. Now, many other people are going to be doom and gloom with 5 days of darkness, 4 days of this, the stock market's going to crash. No. This is about unfinished business, okay? To stop faking it to make it. And we're going to see economic meltdowns in people's minds, biblical levels of doom and gloom coming from the religious right and left. And it's going to be a time where people aren't going to be able to figure jack and shit out. Okay? And this is where you turn to spirit to help cut through the doom and gloom bullshit that's about to come and know that this is about working on yourself. And if you take time to work on yourself during this Lion's Gate, it will not be as harsh as it was last year. Because this year is setting up to be one of the harshest years. And why? Because we had the 2 years off of COVID where everybody did their spiritual work. David and I called COVID the gift that kept on giving for a reason. And all those people who quit their spirituality late 2022 and we're into 2023, this Lion's Gate's going to say, what did you actually do, asshole? Okay? And the accountants are going to come down and look, did you really invest in your personal growth or not? Or did you do all Bitcoin exploration on your personal growth?
Yep. You do
What
realize.
about the masters? What about the masters who keep getting kicked up the arse by the Lion's Gate?
Well,
Yep.
more work to be done to be a master, isn't it? The price of being a master has gone up 10%. Spirit tax.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that this landscape would be an interesting time for people doing this Galactic Special Forces stuff.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they're gonna have all sorts of ways to save the world again.
And avoid their own stuff once again.
How many times do you need to save the world before you have megalomania?
Yeah.
Well, how many times do you have to do it and it doesn't change anything until you realise?
If you have to save the world more than once, you're not doing your job properly.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And
How many
is
times
it-
do you need to do that until you get the message?
How is it being a self-eliminated master?
It's not.
No.
Because everything comes from from an adversarial point of view. It's them against us and we against them. And here's the problem. This adversarial point of view, it becomes a little bit humorous and comical when it is, you realize nobody cares.
Nobody.
Nobody cares.
So what? It's just spiritual ego at the end of the day, isn't it?
That's right.
Let me tell you how this works. I once had when I was in college, you know what a tiger moth is? It's a moth that looks like a stealth bomber. Okay, it has swept back wings, right? So I was I was sleeping one night, and this tiger moth flew into my room. My roommate was there and slapped me on the face. Okay, I got up in a rage. This thing has got to die. My roommate and I spent the next hour trying to kill that thing. Okay, it outflew us, right? We were sweating. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning. We're sweating. We're trying to kill this little bug, right? And then we finally sat down to take a break, and the moth just flew out the door, right? In other words, the moth didn't give a shit about us one way, right? Right? It was just like, what are these humans doing? Oh well, let me just go on my business next point. This is the kind of thing that we're talking about when we say nobody cares, right? We're just flying about a business. Oh, this is what we're talking about, right? Hilarious. These things actually happen. So a lot of people, I think a lot of people, they fantasize about adversaries and so on, and they're like, nobody cares about you. Nobody cares about you in your basement. Nobody cares about what you're doing.
Right. And those phantom adversaries get hijacked by conspiracy theorists who try to lure in the stupid spiritual people all the time.
Yep. Hilarious.
Right, guys, so it's come to the end of the show. So, Maty, how can people get a hold of you?
Okay, if you want a session from me, it's Maty Waller, 2feathersmedicine@gmail.com.
Laura Massey.
Laura 2feathers@gmail.com. 2 is a number 2. Thank you.
Thank you. And Andrew?
You go to my website, andrewbartzis.com. We are offering the next level of mentorship class. For all of you that wanted to finally be a part of the mentorship class, go onto the website and hit on the mentorship tab and sign on up.
And David,
if you guys
what's coming up for you as well?
If you guys want to talk to John Doe, hit me up at info@universalcitizentv.com, and I will be sure to tell you all the bad things you're doing with your practice, and destroying the world. I will.
So John Doe's a life coach now?
He's changed.
Yeah.
John Doe is a life coach.
He's going to make loads of money.
Converting these spiritual types. Yeah, okay, so.
And if anybody would like any soul surgery sessions, psychic surgery, head on over to daletobin.com. And welcome back, everyone. What a great show. And good night, good morning. Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Stick around, David.